Hi, it's Maria. Today I wanted to give you some messages, and it's going to be all over the place. I have so many things I wanted to tell you that I'm not sure where to start. But I will tell you that today is my mother's birthday, and she died 13 years ago in 2011. And so, sometimes when we go through those times, we reflect and we think about how much we really loved the people that meant so much to us in our lives. And so today's one of those days where, yes, it's appropriate to grieve, and yet it's not appropriate to like ruin our lives and think, oh my gosh, I can't live without my mother, or I can't live without my husband, or I can't live without this person or that person. No, we do. We graduate, they've graduated, and they moved on. We are to remember the good times, because they're all good and nothing is a mistake. That leads me to another section, which is nothing is a mistake, actually, because nothing is inherently good or bad. And so even that's a difficult thing to understand, though, really, because you might think, well, if someone's a diabetic and they say, oh, I'm not going to take my insulin, well, then that's a bad thing, right? That's really wrong. However, it's not really wrong because it's their life and we are given free will. And by virtue of our having the free will, we determine what we are going to do and then suffer the consequences, whatever those might be, and however horrific they might be. Whereas if somebody says, I'm not going to take my insulin, then you think, oh, well, maybe that person's going to die. Well, whatever they choose to do, it's their life. And we learn for maybe the next lifetime or whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that right now. But we do need to take responsibility for ourselves, exercise as best judgment as we possibly can so that we can progress and we can live the best life we can while we're here on planet Earth. And our choices are really reflective of how evolved we really are. And so today being my mother's birthday, I am not going to let the narcissists in my life try to run their game, which they do. And any of you who have had close contact with narcissists, which is probably everyone on the planet, we have to understand that what they try to do is really trigger us and really upset us. And so when there are certain holidays, narcissists love to set up and sabotage holidays, because then we are so excited about having a beautiful Christmas or a beautiful Valentine's Day or whatever else is coming up, a beautiful Easter, beautiful Thanksgiving. And so what they try to do is now, how can I destroy that person's fun time, right? How can I really mess up their holiday? And so we just remember to stay true to who we are, and we are not to allow others to affect us. And they can run their crazy game and they can have the setups and interrupt us during our meal and have some woman call whoever we're with, just to kind of upset us, or if we have a pet, to kind of poison our pet, and then we're so concerned about our pet. Or, I'm just thinking of little examples of how they would try to interfere in our life. Distractions to take us away from the beauty of the day. And so be strong. Don't let anyone affect you, because it really doesn't matter. Nothing they do really matters, right? And so we need to just stay true to who we are. I wanted to go back into when I was telling you about the Greyhound brain injury. And so how the driver slammed the door, on my face. And I told my Texas attorney that I was being followed. You need to tell them to stop harassing Maria, because I know I'm being followed. But that's true of any litigation. Here I'm digressing. But even if, in fact, you lose some jewelry or something, and you realize that your phones are monitored, and they are, because the insurance company wants to know if you're calling your best friend and you're saying, you know what, I put in a claim, but really I found that ring that I claimed for insurance. And then they'll drop you and you'll never get other insurance again. or if you feign, or damages in a car accident, and all of a sudden you say, oh my gosh, I can't work, I can't have sex, I can't do anything because I'm so disabled. And then all of a sudden, they put cameras in your house, or they put cameras so they can see you, and all of a sudden, you're like doing jumping jacks. So yes, insurance companies do that. With the harassment and the 24/7 monitoring, I did call my attorney and I said, this needs to stop. And my attorney said, are you sure it's not your sister? and I thought, oh my goodness, just Heather knows in everything. But also, he called me with the dates of depositions in this lawsuit, and the dates just happened to be my father's birthday, her son's birthday, my children's birthday, my father's birthday, and then the big day of the trial was my sister's birthday. And I thought, oh, well, that's just to let me know. Come on, Maria, wake up. You know that this is not exactly a fair courtroom. And yes, and that the attorneys are involved in some machinations going on behind the scenes, yes. And so I just wanted to let you know that when you see things that just aren't exactly copacetic, that they just aren't exactly right, and things aren't aligning, then you know that there are some secrets going on behind the scenes. And that's a big thing with narcissists. They love secrets, because what they'll do is they'll tell one person a secret, and then they'll say, shh, don't tell anybody about that. It's just you and me. And then they'll tell another person the same thing, and they'll say, don't tell anybody. It's just you and me. And they keep going. And so everybody has a special relationship with them. So it's kind of like the wheel, there's the center of the wheel, and then it just kind of expands outward. Well, that's what happens, because she's the center of it, and then she has a secret relationship with this person and this person and this person and this person, and all the way around the wheel. And so everyone thinks that they're the special one. Everyone thinks that they're her best friend, but meanwhile, she's everybody else's best friend. It just kind of gives people like narcissists that sense of power. There's a lot of bribing, right? Oh, I'll give you some money, but don't tell anybody about that. And so there's bribing, and then the other end of that is the blackmailing. Okay, now I gave you that, and we have this special secret, and so if you don't follow what I say, I'm going to have to expose you. And so all of a sudden, as we talked about in the one video, there are so many pets. All these men that think that they're just so hot and she just couldn't wait to jump into bed with them, that in fact, they have become their pets. And so I'm not saying that any of this is really happening, right? Because I'm not interested in another lawsuit. I am just telling you from my perspective, this is what I know to be true. And so this is absolutely what I believe. And my belief is my belief, right? But when we think of human beings evolving, we see that at this particular time in the evolution of humanity, we are really seeing the very worst of humanity. And so it's almost as if it's a simulation, if you can even believe that. And the sooner we detach and we see behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz, you know how he had all this smoke emanating from his little cubicle behind the curtain, the sooner we detach from all of that drama, then the sooner it will all go away. But as long as we keep buying into it, then we are held captive. And so my giving you those certain examples are just so that all of a sudden your antennas will go ding, 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 ding. Oh, that's why that's happening. Oh, I heard Maria say something about that. And so I need to not buy into it, right? And it's empowering you to maintain who you really are deep inside. You know who you are. And so just release yourself from the drama, and really it's all drama. It's all a play, and you're the star. And so don't worry about anything. And so when we think about the special dates, whether it's a holiday or it's your birthday or it's a date that it means a lot to you. Like today is my mommy's birthday, and I remember her so vividly. And many of us have had such angelic parents, and those of us who have not really missed out. And yet we need to learn to parent ourselves, right? Because we can't depend on anyone else giving us what we need. Only we can give ourselves what we need, because our path here on planet Earth is all about embodying self-love. And so, yes, I was one of the fortunate ones that had an angelic mother. But I also know that my children, who haven't spoken to me in 17 years, are struggling with the fact that they don't believe that they had an angelic mother. And really, that's their choosing to not contact me. It's their choosing to take the harder path. And maybe that's what their soul needed. We can run, but we can't hide, because we're not dealing with humans here. And so we're dealing with God, and we're dealing with the creator of all that ever was, all that is, and all that ever shall be. We're dealing with source energy. We're dealing with the infinite intelligence of the universe. And so when we realize that we are here to be honest, we're here to be fair, we're here to be good, we're here to say no so that we don't suffer consequences. I want to tell you about in 2004. The reason I left Chicago was because it was my daughter's birthday, and someone tried to break into my condo after midnight, and it was so terrifying. Couldn't go to sleep, and in fact, we laid on the floor opposite the front door, and we sat there and we just watched that door and wondered if someone was going to continue to come in. And we had, of course, called the police prior thereto. And what he said is this was a professional job, because he said we walked around the building and there are no footprints, and it was snowing in Chicago. And so he said, yes, they were already in the building. And so this way they could escape the cameras by the front door, although the cameras in the hallways had been disengaged. The police had said, you need to speak to higher authorities tomorrow morning. And in fact, I did. I went to the FBI. That was why I left Chicago. Do my children feel I abandoned them? I guess they did. But you know what? A mother who left and wasn't allowed to take her children with her is better than a mother who was going to be sacrificed by her own family for her money, which is like the craziest thing I've ever heard. But in fact, it happens. So whether or not these children were going to be able to connect with me at some point, or whether they were going to lose me to the violence and the psychopathology of others, I had to make that decision. So as we sit and we think about our life, I remember when I was traveling a lot as a child, my parents would take us to Europe every other year, because my father, was born and raised in Greece, and he didn't have any family here. So we would go to Greece, and he could see his brothers and his mother and his father and his aunts and uncles and that whole bit. And so we would be on the plane, and I'd always ask for a window seat. And so I sat there, and I used to look outside the window, and I would see the houses and the cars and the subdivisions and the streets and the skyscrapers and everything down there. And the one thing you couldn't see really were the people, because they were just so minute. And so you thought about, well, okay, so you see two cars and they've collided. And then you think, oh, so now the drivers are going to get out and they're going to have all this huge altercation, or maybe they're going to be injured or whatever, and then there's going to be the ambulance coming to pick them up and take them. And so it's like a game, right? Because you are seeing them. They are the size, not even the size of ants. They are the size of pinheads down there. And so you can look at them and you can say, wow, so there's one crazy guy who's running and he's trying to attack other people. And so you think, well, that's just insane. Why would somebody do that? And because it's like one is just like another. We really are one because we are all the same. We are rather insignificant when you think about it. And so we are all just trying to get along. And some people are a little crazier than others, causing havoc in our lives and in their own lives. And so when you think, gosh, if people realized how silly they are when they behave like lunatics, like goofy, like characters, strong arm themselves and say, and be the narcissist, right? And just try to ruin the lives of others, you think, you know what, you really are a pathetic soul, aren't you? But you'll learn eventually, and whether you evolve this time or not, eventually you will endure enough where all of a sudden you'll have some type of an awakening and you'll say, you know what, there really is a better way to deal with things on this planet. Yeah. The insanity of the poor decisions that we make. And it's even, if you think about it, it's even the addictions. So when you see people that are so addicted to something, you just have to sit back. Or if you have an addiction, just sit back and think, really, I'm going to let alcohol, or I'm going to let drugs, or I'm going to let sex, or I'm going to let shopping, or whatever addiction, or gambling, whatever addiction, to make me look like an absolute idiot running around trying to feed my addiction. I mean, when you think about it that way, it's shameful, right? I mean, we are powerful human beings, even if on the scheme of things we are insignificant. But we are powerful for ourselves, and we hold the power to be whatever we want to be, right? No one can take that away from us. That's why there are so many people that have come here from other countries who had lived lavish lives over there, and they come here and they're like immigrants and they don't have anything. And so they have to start building from the bottom up. And so we all learn to adapt, right? And so there is nothing that we can't do or nothing that we can't have, because our potential is truly unlimited. And so we just have to remember that sometimes when we're sitting back and we're thinking, oh gosh, woe is me. There is no woe is you. You are strong, you are smart, you have been given so many gifts. It's just a matter of kind of like peeling the onion and cherishing those gifts and seeing them for what they are. And then we think, oh gosh, I can do this. Yes, you can all do this. And so I wanted to tell you about narcissists and how they try to hurt us, even with pets. And so I have to tell you that the owner here, a friend of mine, who was kind enough to let me kind of move into a spare bedroom, he had a white cat and a black cat, and they were kittens, and they grew up, and the white cat actually became impregnated. They were both female, but the white cat ended up having babies, and she ended up having 2 gray babies. And so they were just, and it was a male and a female, and they were so adorable. But there are so many narcissists that are, I believe, flying monkeys, and she pays them to actually create havoc in my life. And the male actually left for a while and then came back, and then I believe he was actually taken, because I did see a car that pulled in the driveway and the cat came out. So someone had sequestered him for a while. And the next time he left, he came back, and it was as if someone had tried to cut his tail off. And there was this gaping hole right where the tail met his behind. I thought, oh, they were letting me know that he was going to be their sacrificial ritual. And as I told you, that there are people that I have been told do engage in, whether it's black magic or voodoo or hexes or spells or sacrifices or whatever they do. There are people on this planet that do this. I don't know if it's for fun or they do it to satisfy some sick thought that they have, or some hatred, or maybe these are just practitioners who are paid and that's how they make their money. I don't really know, but I know that bullies like to prey on the innocent, and there's nothing more innocent than a beautiful domesticated animal like a cat or a dog. And I'm sure other people like guinea pigs and gerbils. I didn't like gerbils because I used to have to do surgery on them in grad school. And so a couple of them bit me, but I guess I'd want to bite me too if I had to inject them and then scratch their uterine horn in order to write a master's thesis. I think, oh gosh, why did I do that? But anyway, that was part of my project. In any event, I did tell you about body heat in the last video, where people get others to do their dirty work. And so the setup there was the star of the movie, Kathleen Turner. She set up a man to kill her husband, right? So that because her husband is the one that had all the money. And so here we can think that in our situations, there are setups that will get rid of our mothers, our fathers, and whoever else is standing in the way of others getting what they believe they have a right to, whether it's our inheritance or whether it's something else, whether it's our furniture, whether it's our lover, regardless of what it is. People have this distorted entitlement attitude, right? And so they think, I don't think that that person should have it. I think I should have it. And so when you see people like that, again, we have to just be careful of how we react. And we just have to say, gosh, that's one crazy, crazy person. And I'm going to do everything I can to protect myself. But I'm certainly not going to lower myself to their level and try to deal with them from that low vibration. I'm going to just be who I really am. And if I can't accomplish what I need to accomplish by getting it back, then I'm going to have to just release it to the divine, because there is karmic justice. And as much as we want to fight for it, it's just like battling heads. It doesn't behoove us to engage in that kind of lower vibration. And so we just always have to stand tall. And like my mother used to say, she'd always come by me. My sweet mother couldn't walk by me without stroking my hair or rubbing my back or telling me I love you or telling me how beautiful I was, and in her eyes I was. And so our mothers are our nurturers. And when people don't get that, sometimes then they don't know how to give it, right? And so they've never experienced it. And so therefore something's lacking there, and they have to develop that on their own, or they don't. It's how they want to evolve in this lifetime. I did tell you about Mata Hari. Yeah, I love relating things that I've seen on film or that I've read about in books. And I think that the authors and the filmmakers and the screenwriters just are so evolved, because they really can pick up on trends and things that haven't happened yet. And so we can learn so much. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about, I read about Mata Hari, because I told you that, in fact, someone told me that my sister actually acts like a Mata Hari, and I wasn't sure exactly what that was, but she was a Dutch exotic dancer and courtesan who was convicted of being a spy for Germany during World War I. And so she was executed by a firing squad in France. But the whole idea of it is that there's an exotic dancer, who's using her powers of seduction in order to entrap men. And so she was spying. And so whether or not it's someone that's spying for the government, or whether it's someone who wants to have a special relationship and is double dealing, so she'll be with somebody, get their information, and then she'll go and tell it to somebody else, or something like that. Anyway, so I did want to just tell you about the secrets It's all about secrets. When people have secrets, you know that they're up to something, because otherwise our life we should be able to express ourselves. And if there's something that we're hiding from someone, we might be able to get away with hiding it from other humans, but we can't get away with hiding it from the divine. The divine hears all the conversations that we don't hear. And so the divine shows us what we need to do, what we need to see, what we need to watch out for. And so that's a power greater than any human possesses. So sometimes when people keep secrets, what they want to do is they want to deal with people who are of a higher echelon. And so these are people that are of authority, so that the person can get her win. She's not going to waste her time on somebody who can't help her, right? It's all about, in order to allow her to get what she wants. So whether it was Mata Hari trying to get information so that she can then go back and give it to Germany, or whether it's someone who is trying to have a relationship with someone of authority, like whether it's the police or other law enforcement or attorneys or judges or whoever can decide something in their favor. That's exactly who they will target. And then they will use their seduction in order to engender that type of special relationship, so that everybody thinks, wow, they're not going to tell on her, right? And then she just picks up the phone, and all day long she can pick up the phone and call this person and that person and that person, and everybody thinks that they're the only person she's spoken to. So it's really a pretty good gig, isn't it? It doesn't just happen in the legal arena. I think that happens in the medical arena as well. Remember, we talked about everyone has a price. And so if you think about it, everyone does have a price, no matter how much we'd like to say that, no, I would never sacrifice my integrity. People do all day long. And so whether it is even our physicians who've taken the Hippocratic oath of never to do harm, they will write an incorrect prescription. And so we don't even want to think about it, or they will botch some procedure, or they will do things that we don't even believe exist. And so the thing is all about self-love. We need to take care of ourselves. We cannot all of a sudden just turn over our power to the powers that be, because the powers that be don't care about us. We care about ourselves, and we are children of God, whatever you want to call that force in the universe, the creator of all. And so we are here to be the best we are. We're not here to sacrifice ourselves. However, we are given tests all day long. And so whether or not we're on a diet and we open up the fridge and we see that piece of chocolate cake, or we see the ice cream in the freezer, and so all day long we have tests. If we're a diabetic and we see ice cream, are we going to really sacrifice our health and cheat? Or if we're married and all of a sudden we, kind of have this crush on somebody, are we really going to go there? And so we are being asked to think about our integrity and to think about who we are and how we can be better, not sacrifice our integrity and go the wrong way, right? So we need, if we're on a wrong path of drugging and drinking and cheating and lying and stealing and things like that, it's time to do a U-turn and clean up our act. Yes, because it's all about loving ourselves. Because if we don't love ourselves, we can never love another human being. We can never really love a pet. We can never really love anything because we don't love ourselves. And so when we do have that self-love, then the sky's the limit, because then we can see love all around us. And really, when you think about it, the only energy on this planet is love. And it's just a matter of, do we have it, or are we lacking it? So it's something to think about. I want to tell you about another movie, though. And this movie means a lot to me because it's called Madam X. And this movie I was invited to a dinner party at one of my friends who had this beautiful Christmas dinner party with all these CEOs and everything. And so anyway, I was just in the midst of my divorce, so my ex wasn't invited. And I was invited because I was a friend of the wife. So they had this Christmas party, and then after it was over, I went to get in my car. And on the seat of the car was like this love letter from my soon-to-be ex-husband. And the children and I are all in the bed huddled watching Madam X. Anyway, I want to tell you about this movie because there was this woman, Lana Turner, and she was married to John Forsythe, who's a well-known actor, and he was a senator. And she was a really good wife and mother, but she lived with her mother-in-law, and the mother-in-law didn't like her at all. While her husband was traveling, she was invited to a party, and the mother-in-law urged her to go. She met this guy, and he was kind of a playboy, and so they ended up having a brief affair. And the mother-in-law had kind of set it up because she wanted the daughter-in-law to go there. She knew that there would be eligible men. She knew that the woman was lonely and vulnerable. So she tracked her daughter-in-law 24/7. And when the daughter-in-law decided to end the affair because her husband was coming back from his senatorial duties, the woman went to visit the playboy and say, you know what, the affair is done and I love my husband and so I don't ever want to see you again. Well, he became irate and tried to grab her, and she somehow tried to get away, and he fell down the steps to his death. And so the mother-in-law then had the people that were tracking the daughter there. She had left a scarf at his home, and that was the evidence to link her to the crime. And so the mother-in-law said to the daughter-in-law, look, you're nothing but white trash, and I don't even want you near my son. And my son has presidential aspirations, and so therefore you need to just exit from his life. And the way you're going to do it is we're going to say that you were on a cruise and you were lost at sea, and you just never returned. And so then my son can be rid of you. And every January, I'm going to set up an account and I'm going to fill it every January with a deposit that will last you for the rest of the year. But you will never see my son again, and you will just exit from his life and your son's life, the son was a little boy. So she did. She left. She went to Europe somewhere. But you know, January 1st came along and there was no money in that account. And so she spiraled down and she ended up fraternizing with men that, weren't good for her. But one man got her drunk, and she started to say, oh, if you knew who I was, I had a mansion, and I had a beautiful son, and I had a husband who loved me, and I had a beautiful life. And look at what I have reduced myself to. And so he then was going to blackmail her, contact the son and the ex-husband. And so she decided that she couldn't tolerate that. I mean, that would have just been the ultimate betrayal. And she was embarrassed. She didn't want her husband and her son to know what she had reduced herself to. Ended up killing him. And it was his name, he was like the Penguin in the Batman movie. And he was just kind of like a creepy, sleazy guy. Anyway, she killed him. And he had a gun and he was going to kill her, and then she killed him or something like that. So they brought her to the United States, and she was being tried for the murder of this guy, the Penguin. And guess who was representing her? Oh, he had just finished like Harvard or Yale Law School or something, and he was this bright, up-and-coming attorney, and he was going to defend Madam X because she wouldn't write down her real name, and she just wrote an X. He was defending his mother, And when the two of them would have some interaction in the jail cell and he would come and visit her, she'd say, "How are you? Tell me about your life. Do you have a girlfriend? Are you happy?" And just all these wonderful, wonderful questions that a mother wants to know about her child. And this boy would say, "I didn't know my mother, but if I could choose a mother, I would have chosen you because you are such a wonderful person." And I mean, it is such a tearjerker. And you think, oh, love is all there is. It really is just so beautiful. And it's just such a shame that the mother-in-law, again, just couldn't keep her nose out of other people's business. And so she destroyed this family because she was judging. She was thinking that this woman wasn't good enough for her son. Well, that's just too bad. And so when we think about that was the lesson that the mother learned, which was to take the bait and go. Because if she said, "Hey, I'm not going anywhere. I have my son and I'm going to fight for the truth, and it was an accident, and yes, I had an affair." Well, having an affair is a horrible thing because it hurts a lot of people. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily have to ruin one's life. Certainly it can, yes. We can say, "You know what, I just can never be with my husband who's cheated on me. It's too much for me." Well, then you have that choice. But there are other things that you can do. You don't have to feign your death and allow dark forces to destroy your life. It's a tearjerker, and yet it's a sad commentary on how weak we think we are, when in fact we are very powerful, and no one has the right to talk us into ruining our life, right? We have to sit back and think, yeah, it might be harder to stay and stay with my son, stay with my husband, or even if they were going to get a divorce. But at least she would have some visitation rights and she wouldn't have to be at the mercy of a crazy mother-in-law. So anyway, I wanted to tell you that. So in terms of narcissists and holidays, today's January 30th, and that is the day of my mother's birthday. But there are many days coming up that usually have some type of ridiculous issue, right? So there's the 30th of January. My daughter's birthday was the 5th, and that was the day that I left Chicago. I left Chicago on the 6th because there was a setup to have a robbery, a burglary, to have somebody to force their way into my condo and to probably kill me. And so because he was banging at the door and he using his key. And so somebody had given him the key to the condo. But in fact, I had gotten a deadbolt lock that locked from the inside, and it was not a key lock. It was one that you turned. And so they couldn't get in. But boy, he was going to try to break down that door. And had it not been a big wooden door, a big, a very sturdy wooden door, he would have just blown through it. But the 8th happens to be my sister's birthday. So that was the date of the trial with Greyhound that I just said, no, I'm not even going to participate in that. And so what I did is I wrote the judge and I said, no, I would like a delay, or I'd like to pause. Someone settled with Greyhound. So isn't that interesting? So that means that people went before the judge and they settled. And so somebody was paid a lot of money, because a traumatic brain injury is nothing to be taken lightly. And so if in fact Greyhound paid out, somebody got that money. It wasn't me. I didn't think I was appropriately represented. So you have the 12th, which was my Uncle George, my favorite Uncle George's birthday. Usually there's some kind of ridiculous thing going on. And then the 14th is Valentine's Day. And then the 16th was my mother-in-law's birthday. And so it was kind of like ding, 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 all of a sudden for, let's see, how many years? I think like the last probably 20 years, there are just things going wrong, you know? And sometimes there are armed robberies that are planned. Sometimes there are just flat tires. Sometimes there are other car issues. Sometimes there are threats on the phone. Sometimes there are messages erased. Sometimes there are all kinds of weird things, you know. And remember we said there's usually one person in charge that is kind of the mastermind of creating pain and suffering to others. And so we have to just be strong and just say, look, this is really pitiful. And I'm really sorry that you love yourself so little and that you see yourself to be nothing but a distraction and nothing but an agitation and an irritation in people's life, where you can't even enjoy your day. Well, I guess you are enjoying your day laughing at other people's struggles, but in fact, that is just so unconscionable. That's ridiculous. Money's just thrown around, and people will do all kinds of things for money. And you know what used to happen is sometimes there would, on one of those dates, there would be a black cat that I don't know where she found him or whoever worked for her. It's the flying monkeys that do all the work. But if in fact they would sequester a black cat, and then the minute I would go outside, they'd like let the black cat loose, and the cat would walk right in front of me. And so I used to, when I saw a black cat, I used to think, I don't know, is that really bad luck? And what's going to happen now? And then when I came here and there was a white cat and a black cat, and I fell in love with all the cats. And the black cat is just so, the black cat never had any kittens. And so it's a little more needy than the others, whereas the white cat has her daughter here, the gray one. And so they're kind of like a team, and every time they see one another, they're like licking each other, and the mother is very maternal and has taught the gray cat how to play, and they go after the lizards and the geckos and stuff. The black cat is more reserved, and sometimes she likes to be fed by hand and things like that. So you think things happen and we learn. So I'm not afraid of cats anymore, and I love black cats. And in fact, black cats are known in Japan and in Great Britain to be very lucky. And in fact, the reason why they have this reputation of being unlucky is in fact because they are so lucky, and there was such a run on black cats. Everybody wanted one. So in fact, they said, oh no, you know what, black cats are really, they're not very good. And so you need to stay away from them because they're bad luck. But really, it was just so that people would continue adopting cats that weren't black, right? The little tabbies or whatever other color they were. And so anyway, isn't that interesting? So everything that happens to us, there's always a reason for it. And yet, most of us walk around like this, right? We think whatever we see is what there is. And yet there's so much more. Like when we hear a bird chirping or we hear something, there's always a reason for it. And so there are so many animal messengers that give us information because we live in such an amazing time and in such an amazing world where animals have so many senses that we don't have. You know about how there are dogs that have been trained to smell cancer in patients. And there are dogs who go around saving lives, and there are dogs that go around locating people and bodies that are in the woods or whatever. And they smell the cocaine, and they have so many senses above and beyond what humans have. And so it's just, we live in such a fantastic world, and during this time where ugly is really rising to the surface. And so if we can just not see it as ugly, but see it as an opportunity for the earth to be purging some of these lower vibrational and negative energies. And as earth purges them, then there's more of a cleansing. And so we are then surrounded by better energies. And so we can feel the essence of God, the essence of our Creator. It's not about how much, it's not about the money. It's not about how much we're going to try to stiff someone out of their money and how we're going to steal it and we're going to hurt this person and we're going to outsmart that person. But instead, it's there's a victory of good over evil. And so it's just amazing. I just can't even believe how lucky we are, because there are so many tests. We can either go this way or we can go this way. What are we going to choose? And so the one thing that we are going to choose for sure, and we don't have to say is it left or right, it's us. We have to choose to love ourselves and tell the truth and be the best version of ourselves, right? Yeah. And so when we embody more of our God essence rather than the fear that keeps us afraid to speak. Now, 2 years ago, I couldn't be telling you all the truths I'm telling you because I was still in that fearful mode where, they'd send a black cat if I walked outside of the house. Or, they would echo the phone. So I would try to make a call and it would echo. And that used to drive my poor mother and father insane, that their own daughter and their ex-son-in-law was trying to torture them. They couldn't even place a phone call. And so when we just say, I don't care, I'm going to tell you the truth. And that's how powerful we are. Don't let anybody stop you from doing anything that's good and fair and just. And so when we remember that, then always speak your truth and speak it with compassion, and always have the intention of goodness, because two people can do the same thing, but if one person has a bad intention, then it's not going to go well, and there's a lot of karma that goes for that. So have a good intention, send out positivity, and don't be afraid to speak your truth. Thank you for being with me today. It's a challenging day, and yet it's a really special day because we can bask in all the goodness that we have had in our life. And as we continue being the very best we can be, then we're actually helping others unlock their gifts so that they too can be the very best they can be. Because why not? We're not here to suffer. We're here to see our greatness and to become the most powerful and the very highest versions of ourselves, right? So stand tall, as my mother used to say, tummy in, titties out, and don't let anybody dim your light, right? Okay, so I'm going to go. Bye. See you soon.